Well, welcome to our very special edition Play All May live stream. Today we're going to be spotlighting Employee Wellness Week, and I'm joined with my co-host, Lisa Paulson. Lisa is from Minnesota, but she's now doing her doctorate in Colorado. Lisa, we also know that you have a background. You've done some blogging. You've done some research papers. You've done some consulting and presentations on wellness and self-care. Which is a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight, as you know. And then, of course, you are the chair of the Shape America Physical Activity Council. So, Lisa, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you, Guy, for helping us put all this together and start this important conversation.
And Lisa, I know you might find this really interesting, but we already got some shout outs. So let's start with the first one from Jamie Sparks from ETR. He says, I could not miss the lineup of the Shape Rock Stars. So that's really cool. Thanks, Jamie. And this one really caught my attention. He's so excited that he just realized he was an hour early. I guess it's better than being an hour late, right?
That's the time zone thing, huh?
Yeah, and from from Missouri. Let's go. Amazing lineup tonight. Hi, Anna. And yeah, here we go. And so why don't you, Lisa, introduce our guests?
Well, thank you, Guy. So with us tonight, we have two representations from the Physical Activity Council, and then we also have an Active Schools representative as well. So first up, we have Francina Hollingsworth. Francina is the HPE specialist out of Houston, Texas, and again serves on the Physical Activity Council. Hi, Francina. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm getting to know this platform, so bear with me.
Well, thank you for being here. And then
Not
up next we have Megaera Regan. And Megaera is a retired PE teacher. She taught for 31 years in New York. And a special note about Megaera, she also rides unicycle. Oh, wow. Which I don't know how many of our listeners know how to ride a unicycle. I sure don't. So Megaera, thank you for being here.
Great to be here. Thank you for having us.
And then lastly, we've got Nick Kline. Nick Kline is from Active Schools, and he's a national PE consultant and a champion of physical activity. So welcome, Nick.
How's everybody?
Good.
Well, Nick, looks like you inspired this. Sorry, I got the next one. Woohoo, go Megaera. Part of that Friday night family, of course. You got to give that big shout out.
Yeah.
And can't wait. Looking forward to this webinar. That's coming all the way from the state of Washington with Matt Wood. Hi, Matt. How are you? Glad you're with us. So right before we begin, I just want to, kind of make a general comment. And I'm going to I think some of you might find this really interesting. But first of all, Francina, I think it's great that you've made a career change recently. And as you said earlier, you are in the deep South in Houston, Texas. So yes. Again, congratulations on now getting on the curriculum side. Megaera, all I can say is, I don't know, I guess maybe in physical education circles, I think hashtag beast mode would apply to you. And why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about how, I believe you have maybe had a bad back of some kind, and at a certain age, you decided to do something extraordinary. So why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Right. So my first bit of advice is never water your husband's garden after a day of training for a triathlon, because that kind of, it blew my back out, and I ended up having surgery later on that year. And recovering from my surgery, I started training for more triathlons. And in particular, I was able to, I guess I was deep into my 50s when this happened. I did a half Ironman, which was very, very exciting. And then I decided, well, if I could do that, let's just do a full marathon. And I did that. And so, check, done. And so that was exciting and a bit of a challenge.
Megaera, you're inspiration to us all. All I can say is it's just really cool. And Nick, I'm so excited, Nick, that you're with us, because you have a background similar to mine. I started out with my degrees in corporate fitness and exercise physiology, both undergraduate and grad. but my doctorate work is in business administration, specifically in social media marketing strategies. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, because I think it's very relevant to what we're going to talk about today. Is like me, you're kind of conflicted between having a passion for advocacy for physical activity as well as the business side.
Sure. Well, I started off as an undergrad as a business major. Sophomore year added physical education. I ended up doing a dual degree in both, and then got my master's in special education. So trying to make the well-rounded to hit all the components within the field. So.
Well, that's awesome, because Michelle Huff out of New Jersey says she loves us and loves all of us, and that's a good thing. So, Lisa, why don't you kick us off to our questions?
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to talk about this topic because, if we started just talking half as much as we talk about student SEL, and don't get me wrong, is so important right now, but if we talked half as much about that as we do on the people providing that SEL and those lesson plans every day, I think we'd be in a much better spot. So I'm super excited for this conversation. So the first question is, advocacy, happens at all different levels, but like, in what ways can employees, staff, teachers, administrators, those kinds of things, advocate for more wellness at all levels in our schools and in our communities?
Okay, I'll take that one. So advocacy starts with us first. So we have to be an advocate for wellness, health, and physical education and physical activity. So we have to promote the things that we're passionate about. So on the campus level, it might be reaching out to our principals, letting our principals or administrators know the different programs that we want to offer on our campuses, maybe even creating a wellness committee and coming up with different activities and events for staff members to promote wellness. And everything doesn't have to be fitness. It could be self-care. It could be just getting together and fellowshipping. All of our fitness inspired personnel, maybe get them to come do certain type of fitness classes. I know one thing that I did while I was on my previous campus is we would have outings. So we would have social outings. Sometimes we would go bowling together. We would do kind of like fun runs, like color runs or bubble runs together. So those are things that you could do on a campus level. And then district-wide, if you do not have a specific wellness coordinator, then you could get with your benefits office and come up with different activities that you could do district-wide through the benefits office.
Love it. Anyone else like to tackle that question? All right, well, we'll move on to our next question. And this one is for Megaera. Now, Megaera, before I ask the question, I will just say that this question is near and dear to me because I learned a lot about self-care and what that looks like based on things that have been going on in my life. And for me, I turned to music and I turned to playing guitar, and I do 80s rock stuff just to be funny, but it soothes me. So I'm just curious, especially with all that you've gone through and all that you've seen in your career, my question would be, what are ways that you practice self-care as an educator?
So I'll speak a little bit more towards how I took care of myself during the school day while I was at work. And a big part of that, honestly, was setting some boundaries and making sure that I did not just knee-jerk say yes to everything that came my way, because teachers are so overwhelmed with the amount of work and expectations that are on them every single day, and nothing is ever taken away. Things are only added. So that's pretty much so out of our control as teachers. But what is in our control is how we handle it. So setting boundaries, saying, you know what, at lunchtime, I am going to take that lunchtime for me. Even if it means I have to come in a half hour early to get my work done, I will take that break in the day. I might go for a walk. I might see if there's, somebody that wants to play a little Foursquare in the gym with me, just to sort of get off steam. And I'll also make myself get down to the lunchroom and, sort of be with people that I wanted to be with. And now getting to the lunchroom part, sometimes it gets a little bit dicey there because teachers are venting and there's a lot going on, like I said. So at that point, I try to make sure or try to put a positive spin on it as best I can. And maybe, hey, tell me about Billy. I hear he had a great baseball game the other day. And when I start talking about people's children and their families, that kind of lightens things up a little bit there. So that was super helpful as well. But basically setting those boundaries, not taking emails or texts after a certain hour. Once I got home from work, I had to carve that time out for my family and for myself as best I could. And I wasn't perfect, believe me. I mean, I hear that thing and I want to check immediately what's going on, as my family would testify. But I always tried to keep it in my head that this was something I was going to try to do to help protect me. So.
Absolutely. And I will open this up either to Nick or Francina. Anyone else like to add to that, conversation on what are some ways that you practice self-care?
Well, I do several different things, and sometimes consistency is so hard, but just taking time for myself. So it might be scheduling a nap because I miss being in kindergarten where the teacher told me, I don't think I napped in kindergarten. Now I miss it. So I'm trying to figure out when can I nap, because sometimes you just need to rest. But I love getting massages and just having time to myself where it could be just outside time and just decompress, because sometimes we just need to relax and just let all of the stress of the day go.
You know what? Thank you for sharing that. I really like that about taking naps a lot. And certainly the massages as well. So with that, so Lisa, before we go into the third question, we've got some, we encourage you to go ahead and give some shout outs. Yes, Francina, Advocacy starts with us. Exactly right. From New Jersey, Michelle Huff says, they actually have a wellness committee at their school that she co-chairs. Again, part of this reason is to open up the conversation so we can become better advocates in this area. And then Anna happens to say, yes, the healthy boundaries are essential. That consistency that you referred to is even more vital, and certainly defining, and certainly definitely can be challenging as well. And that's a great question. And thank you, Anna. And if you'd like, go ahead and you can even ask the panelists any questions. You can certainly also keep the shout outs coming. We appreciate those. So with that, Lisa, why don't you take up our next question?
Yeah, I love it. I love it so far. In all of my experience talking about educator self-care and different things, it's like this idea that, we have to have this candlelit bubble bath, or we have to go get a massage that costs, $75 for an hour. And yeah, maybe it could be that, but we also have to honor, like, what are we going to do every day, right? Because I can't afford to get a $75 massage every day. And so, like, what do I need today, and being aware of that and what that looks like, and honoring, maybe that looks like a walk, maybe that looks like a phone call, maybe that looks like a bubble bath, all those different things. And so it's interesting that sometimes this idea of self-care seems polarizing. And like, why should self-care ironically be one more thing on our to-do list? That's the problem, right? So Nick, I'm wondering what your thoughts are here. Like, what do you think? Why does self-care seem polarizing, and what do we do about that?
Well, you touched on a few good points when you're introducing that question, and a lot of times people have a misperception of what it is, right? Like some of the examples you said, like it is only meditating in a bubble bath or something along those lines, and it's not one specific thing. And Megaera and Francina gave a couple of great examples. I think the other contributing piece there of what makes it polarizing is a lot of times we, human nature, we don't like to be told what to do. So we kind of want to live our own lives. And if that means like we are going to sit around watching TV and not get up and work out today, then like we don't want to feel guilty for doing that. And then the third piece we're, as a group of educators, tend to be selfless. And if taking time for ourselves means taking time away from helping somebody or spending time or catching up on lesson plans or emails or whatnot, then maybe we're not feeling like we're doing our best as a teacher or a parent or a companion or whatever it might be. So I think there's a lot of different pieces that contribute to why it gets a negative connotation in a lot of respects.
That's a really good point. And what I'd like to do now is, Francina, in continuing this discussion, is now let's take a look at it from this angle of what does Shape America, does the Physical Activity Council do? Because I know there's probably some people out there wondering what this council does. I know at first I actually did on terms of what is really the mission, but how can this work to support employee wellness? So I think that's really a big question that we want to answer tonight.
Yes, so one of our biggest goals in our PA Council meetings is of course, we advocate for physical education, promoting that in various ways, but we're also looking at how we can promote employee wellness. So we're actually revving up the employee wellness SIG, and Lisa will talk about that more a little bit later. But one of the things that came out of the Shape America coffee talk, we have a long list of to-dos. So one of the things, like tonight, we partnered with Active Classrooms to sponsor help promote Play All May and Employee Wellness Week. So and that came from a lot of the talks we had at the breakfast or coffee talk, excuse me. I love food, so I'm always thinking about breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
They should be breakfast talks.
Right.
Where's the breakfast?
That's what we're gonna change it to next time. Breakfast talk.
Bacon talk.
That is awesome.
I love it, Francina. So Megaera, like branching off of that, what I keep thinking about is we had some really rich, and you were there, we had some really rich conversations at those coffee talks in NOLA. And even if you weren't there, the stuff that we were talking about around advocating for physical activity in your school can't stay sitting at those tables in New Orleans. We've got to make some of those things happen, right? But how does it happen for the givers who are giving for our students? And so what do you think schools, Megaera, what do you think schools and leaders can do to make sure that we're focusing on employee wellness in that same perspective?
Well, I mean, getting down to, I'll speak from the school that I taught in, it's kind of smallish elementary school, 4 classes per grade level. And again, when talking about the wellness and the expectations on teachers, sometimes I think you had mentioned it, Nick, and Francina, you mentioned it also. It's like almost like that's just one more thing, one more expectation being put on teachers and staff, all staff. You got to get out there and, hey, do this, do that for wellness. And, okay, everybody, it's time for a mindful minute. And it's like, when am I going to grade my papers? So to first start off being very mindful of what everybody is going through within your building is super important. And to keep it, I think, casual and fun, but also encourage and support. So, I mean, I've had teachers come up to me and say, I'd really like to start running again. Can you help me develop a running program? But at the high school level, having, say, the gym open for teachers before school or at certain times. So if they wanted to work out, they could. So really providing as many opportunities for physical activity or wellness or different challenges that are not threatening and don't feel like it's more being added to their plates, and keeping it kind of fun. And also people love their swag. So if you get a bunch of little stickers or a little freebie and pop it in their mailbox if they, logged on a certain number of miles, if you had a little challenge going. I'm telling you, our teachers that got their little Go Noodle lanyards were on fire. They were like, we are doing golden noodle all the time now, because it's just kind of a nice little perk, but keeping it light, keeping it fun, and being mindful of what the stresses are on the teachers and what's filling up their plate and what's overflowing. So
Absolutely. And just in, thank you, Jamie. And Lisa, why don't you read this for everybody?
Yeah, so Jamie Sparks says that teachers don't implement employee wellness self-care for the same reason. They don't prioritize physical activity in the classroom because it takes away, rather than knowing that it enhances their goal. They don't know what they don't know, right? And this idea that it's a unique opportunity versus part of the regular routine. So yeah, that's an excellent point.
And then also Sean Evels, going back to something that Nick brought up, and that is, great point on the self-care is polarizing now because we as educators neglect it for so long. So Nick, anything else you want to add to that? Because I think we're on to something that's a great discussion.
And a lot of times it was happening, but we didn't call it self-care, just like SEL has been happening. Right. We didn't call it SEL for a long time. So now we just have a term for it, and it's still doing all the things that we know we need to do. We need to be active. We need to take care of ourselves, which is fueling our body with things that are going to sustain our energy and our mood and all of those things. So it's just living that health enhancing lifestyle that hopefully people can recognize, and whatever you call it. My point that I've used before, but not yet in this talk, is we are so good at plugging in our cell phones every night. Like we go out of our way to make sure that we have the cord and it's plugged in wherever our charger is, and we never forget it. Right. So think of yourselves like the cell phone, do something, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be the bubble bath, to be redundant with that example. It can be anything that's going to help allow you to wake up the next day, recharge, ready to go, to be your best self in whatever it is that you do.
Absolutely. And just one more comment to share. And I think that this speaks to actually all three of your answers, that Anna says self-care is not selfish. It is essential. And that's what all three of you are talking about. And so with that, Lisa, why don't you bring into our next question?
So our next question is, this past year has been really, really challenging, right? I mean, we've been like global pandemic for more than a year now, but in the past year, and we've been dealing with a war. There's been injustices and inequalities in our world, and our children are dealing with so many things. And again, but what about the people who are teaching our children, right? This idea of secondary trauma. When we teach hundreds of kids, we hear all their trauma, but we go home with it with hundreds of other people's trauma. And so what are we doing for those educators who are going home with that for every single day? So what are we going to do to be more, we've been very reactive in the past. What are we going to do to be more proactive going forward about employee wellness?
So Lisa, with that, I think, well, anyone who's ever seen any of the broadcasts I do, we call what's going to happen next a Zag bomb. That is where we bring on a guest that none of you know that we are going to. I'll be honest with you, like I don't even know. To the producer, Lisa tells me just 2 minutes ago, "Hey, we've got someone on the line, and we're going to bring him onto the show. And let's bring in none other than our Shape America president, Dr. Kim Ballard. Kim, how are you?
I was like, pick me for that one. Pick me for that one. That's so cool. Thank y'all so much. And thanks for letting me drop in, Lisa.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's been a tough year, the tough few years. And that's why, this year, I think, my main message is about, love and understanding and forgiveness, kindness. We just have to really remember those things this year and, really try to not only feel them, but to give them, and really dig into it. And I think that's what, Health Moves Minds this year is really about, that raising the level of kindness and teaching our kids that and what it looks like. So I'm pretty excited about that. So, but yeah, some other strategies, like in the purpose of what you're talking about, I was thinking backstage a little bit about, what Megaera and them were talking about. Yeah, it's good. Like you just setting those boundaries, your work emails, not stressing over things if you can help it, try to control that stress and taking care of your own personal wellness. That is going to be really, really important. In addition to that, though, I think some things that could help is at the end of this school year, truly reflect on the year and what's worked and what you can do better. Reflection is a really strong tool when it's used. And so I think reflection is really good. Work with others. You're never by yourself. That's the best thing about this community and health education and physical activity in general, is that everybody works together. Everybody gives freely. They work with each other freely. And if you need help, there's help there. And so, think about how you can work with others once you've reflected and see what you need. And then last, I would say just prepare, for what you can next year and be flexible with what you can't. Don't beat yourself up for it. You can't be perfect. You're not going to be able to prepare for everything. We don't know what's coming. The best we can do is prepare for what we know and to be flexible with what we can't. So that's what I would say, Lisa.
So Kim, just to piggyback on that, talk to us a little bit. I know that Shape America has a outstanding, I love it, I do, not just because it has a guitar on it, but talk to us a little bit about the campaign about amplifying kindness and what that means and why that's so important. Because I got to be honest with you, I've connected and related that so much, but what does that mean from the Shape America lens, Kim, what it means to amplify kindness?
Yeah, we really want that to be known. We want to really see that come alive. We talk about kindness, and we can do, 1 day of kindness or 2 days of kindness, but we want more of that. We want it to be, not just a week of kindness, but a lifetime of kindness. How do we grow into that? So, you take these 1 or 2 day or weekly kinds of events that we have, these campaigns, and then grow them out, so we amplify them out into not only a longer stint of time that kids are getting used to it and become habitual, but also amplify it from within yourself and your school to the community and to others, and extending it to others not like you as well. And so, just amplifying it anywhere and everywhere that we can.
Absolutely. So with that, we just have one final question. And if obviously we've got a lot of people on right now live. If you got a question or two, or you want to keep the shout outs coming because we really appreciate them, feel free to do that as we're getting near the end of the broadcast. But I want to ask this question. Nick, I want to start with you on this question. And it is, how can organizations like Shape America with active schools support employee wellness on an ongoing basis? We'll start with you.
Well, for anyone who has not heard of active schools, our vision is to educate all youth in an active school environment that supports their learning, their wellness, their health, and all those components, so that they're just like we are when we practice self-care. They are the best versions of themselves to retain the information that they while they're at the school. So we are currently, as we affectionately term, are working on an Active School 2.0, which we plan to launch this summer at our virtual free conference or summit. It is going to be that first week of August, so August 1st to the 5th. And there's going to be about 3 sessions a day, each focusing on a different component that we're currently working on with the UNC, that's the University of Northern Colorado Active School.
North Carolina.
Right.
Northern Colorado.
Oftentimes it gets confused with the other UNC. So the UNC Active School Institute and Active Schools are developing this framework, a variety of resources, a recognition process, all of which are going to be laid out and shared during this free virtual summit. And we're excited for this rebrand, relaunch of everything that we've done previously and everything that is still yet to come.
That is awesome. And with that, Kim, obviously, on behalf of Shape America, obviously a massive shout out to the partnership with Active Schools on
Absolutely.
this.
I'm actually in a unique role right now because I'm on leadership in both of these organizations, and Active Schools is doing so much, around physical activity in general, and, Shape America doing so much around physical education and health education. It's just such a great partnership together. We got so much that we can do, and I'm just really proud of both of them. Shape America in itself definitely has a role in supporting the whole school, whole child, whole community, whole child. And if I give you a link, if you want to go to the Shape America website, there's some really cool stuff there. You just go to tools. Let's see, wait a minute. It's under publications and resources. And then you look under tools to advocate for employee wellness programs. You're going to find position papers there. There's 2 of them there. You're going to find a PowerPoint that you can use and a flyer if you want to print that out and give to your school. There's other things you can use to access from our partners. We have Active Schools link there that you can get some stuff from there, Alliance for Healthier Generation, and CDC has some great information on their website. So those are some great resources. If you haven't been there yet or haven't seen those, you can jump on our Shape America website and it's under resources and publications and look under that toolkit. But I will say, most of all, make some time for yourself to decompress.
Yeah.
You are valued, appreciated, and loved. And this week is to remind you also to refill your buckets.
Absolutely. And Lisa, why don't you take this comment from Jamie? Because Jamie, he's always got to dropping these good nuggets. And this is pretty cool.
So Jamie says, don't miss President Ballard's inaugural keynote next month at Kentucky Shapes Move Thrive 2021. June 26th to the 28th, I believe, down in Kentucky. So Kim will be there.
So a lot of others.
Yeah,
Yes.
Megaera's going to be there. All I can say from last year, that first live convention, and I believe it was something like 503 days at that time, right? Because Shape America, we figured out it was 1,110 days, right? Since we went from Shape Tampa to Shape NOLA, right? So yeah, Kentucky is always going to be noted for that first convention in our profession back when COVID hit. So yeah, Dr. Ballard is going to be on display, getting her jam on. And I can't wait to certainly hear it. And hopefully Kentucky will live stream it for us that may not be there. So, you can take that up with Jamie, I guess. And so with that, I always do this on all the shows before we wrap up. Is there any parting shots? And we'll start with Francine. Let's start with you. Is there anything you'd like to say? Maybe a word of encouragement, advice, anything you've learned, just anything that would bring value to tonight's discussion.
One thing I would like to say is give yourself grace and patience. A lot of times as educators, we're very hard on ourselves because we're go-getters, especially health and physical education teachers. We're always looking to see how can we enhance the environment of our school and, advocate for a lot of things. But sometimes we don't advocate for ourselves and take a break. I know there's plenty of years I only took 1 or 2 days off because sometimes we're like, I'm good, I could do this, but we really need to step back and take time for ourselves and our families. And you always hear we're replaceable. Once you're out, there's going to be someone else to step in. So take care of yourselves. If it's just taking a day off and doing nothing, do that. You are allowed to. You have days. Take your days. Enjoy your life, because there's so much going on in our world. So celebrate yourself, give yourself grace, and, take your days and give yourself some free time.
Amen. I don't know if you can say that word, but it's something we say. I teach at a Baptist school, so I'm kind of trained to say it. So
I like to say grace and space.
There we go. Yes, grace and space. Absolutely. So Nick, final word. And again, thank you so much for all the work that you are doing with Shape America. We greatly appreciate your commitment to this initiative.
Thank you to everyone here and to the partnerships and support that we have from everybody. So my thing to tag along with that is it takes a village. So sometimes it takes a village just to take care of ourselves because we need the workout buddy or we need the person who's going to sit there and veg out and watch TV with us at night or whatever it is. It takes a village at school during the day to, support the learning and activity of the students. It takes a village to get us to where we are today. We talked about the coffee talks at the Shape NOLA to raise our game to the next level, to make sure we're prepared. Everything that we talked about, it's teamwork. It's the collaborations, it's the connections, it's just making sure that we're not in the silos, not both personally and professionally.
Absolutely. And Megaera, after 31 years on the front lines, in the trenches, certainly with a half Ironman under her belt and a marathon, what advice or what parting shot would you have for us?
My little shout out would go to all the administrators out there to just be mindful of what your teachers are going through. And teachers, although it's great to have that food truck roll up once a year, for Teacher Appreciation Year. Wouldn't it be wonderful if an administrator would walk into your classroom one day and say, hey, you know what? Go take a walk. I'm going to teach your class. And just, or guess what, staff, today's faculty meeting is canceled. So those little things sprinkled throughout the year, I'm telling you right now, along with box of ice cream sandwiches in the freezer, that will go a long way to making your staff really feel appreciated, loved, and respected.
Absolutely. And last but certainly not least, our president, Dr. Ballard.
Well, I've said most of my piece, so I just think that that people need to be sure, like I said, have that grace and space. Turn to people when you need them. That's something that I've had to learn over some time, and don't be scared to ask for help when you need it.
Right.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I can say right now in this time of self-wellness, and let it not go beyond or just stay with this week. Let's go beyond this week and carry it, just like we're amplifying kindness, amplify your wellness as well.
Absolutely. And so, Lisa, as the chair of the Physical Activity Council, why don't you also give us a parting shot, as well as perhaps some next steps, maybe even this Thursday?
Well, I just need to start with the fact that, even though we all talk about teacher self-care and employee wellness and all the things, and we're here talking about it, we still need it ourselves, right? And like all of us here and all of our listeners and all this, we're obviously all passionate, but passion does not equal sustainability. We've got to take care of ourselves for this to be sustainable. There's a reason for all these burnouts in education in general, but especially in our field. And so thank you so much for engaging in the conversation. And Nick, I appreciate the Active School 2.0 shout out, because I've done a lot of hours in research in providing those evidence-based practices, and our team's working really hard. So good things to come, in that partnership and those things. Next steps, like Kim said, we can't stop here, right? Like this idea of sustainability, we've got to keep doing this. The keynote in New Orleans, I think the opening keynote, she mentioned from Special Olympics, like we're the front line, right? Like we're checking in with people. We are the people who need to be there for others just by listening and just by checking in before other help is needed. And so who is there listening to the other educators and checking in on the other educators to see if they're okay, and this idea that it's okay not to be okay, and valuing staff wellness as a priority like we do student social emotional learning. So thank you for this conversation. Next steps, what next step could look like. Thursday, it is at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. The Physical Activity Council is hosting a virtual happy hour to sort of reflect on teacher wellness and self-care and those things, but also two-part here. So we're giving away one prize for those who have been engaging in #MeWeek so far. We're giving away one prize at the end of Thursday night for who's ever scored the most points by engaging in those challenges. And then also, if you're interested, like if this is your thing, if you're passionate about teacher, educator wellness, employee wellness, and those kinds of things. Maybe serving at a special interest group for Shape America might be something of interest to you. And so we would love to talk more about that and engage in some conversations around what serving in that capacity might look like. And so join on Thursday night if that's your thing, or if you just want to talk about it and join us for happy hour, that's also fine too.
And then Lisa, the last thing that I think everyone can do, right? Because we're only on Tuesday. There's 3 more days left in the week, right? So we can be tuning in to what Shape America is posting, Active Schools is posting, even everyone that's on this panel. I've been checking out your social media on Twitter, and I think it's great the things that you guys have been doing for this Employee Wellness Week. So yeah, Lisa, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Nick Kline with Active Schools and I with the Shape America Physical Activity Council this last week of Play All May. So Active Schools have been hosting Play All May, all month of May, but this last week is hosting, this idea of employee wellness. And so if you haven't been, it's not too late to start engaging. Go on now and, search the hashtag MeWeek, search the hashtag Play All May, search Active Schools. It's all out there. And there's a physical challenge and an emotional or a mental health challenge for you to post to social, and because both are very, very important, right? So that's why we're hoping people will engage in both of those things, and then you can earn points and perhaps be eligible for prizes. But again, this idea that it doesn't stop there, right? It's just motivating and starting, taking care of ourselves, and then keeping it going from there.
Well, there you have it. So the last thing we have is mark your calendars for our very next broadcast. We will be going live back to our normal scheduled time on Sunday, June 5th. We're going to take this weekend off, obviously, during Memorial Day. But when we get back that following week on June 5th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 Central, Kim Ballard and I are going to co-host together. We're going to be joined with our 5 Shape America National Teacher of the Year Award winners. And I can promise everyone who is listening from all over the globe that we will be asking our National Teacher of the Years how they deal with self-care and what strategies they use, even what they may be using in their classroom. So I can promise you that Kim or I will be asking that question. So mark your calendars. I hope everyone can be part of that. I know that I am so excited, and that's just because one of the National Teachers of the Year is from Missouri. I know I had to put that plug in, but I'm just really excited that we're going to get a chance to hear from all of them. And also, what has been the impact that maybe some of their stories is having, because we had a chance to hear from them if you were at Shape NOLA with their acceptance speeches. But I cannot wait to unpack more of their stories and their journey. And all I can tell you from being at Shape NOLA, it's not what you think. And I'll just leave you with that cliffhanger because I cannot wait for that opportunity. So again, mark your calendars for Sunday, June 5th. That will be our next broadcast. And I just want to thank our guests, Francina, Nick, and Megaera. Thank you so much for all that you bring to the table and all that you do to advocate. Kim, congratulations again on being our president, and certainly next month looking forward to your first presidential keynote at K-Shape Move Thrive 2022. Yeah, you can thank Lisa because she has. I've heard this thing called a Zag bomb. How do we get Kim on here? I said, oh, we got you.
Kim's getting Zag bomb.
Yeah, and Lisa, just want to tell you what an amazing co-host you have been tonight, but also the fact that you are the chair of the Shape America Physical Activity Council, and your leadership is definitely shining through. I also appreciate the fact that you wanted this broadcast. Absolutely. This is what we call advocacy, and this is how we do that. And I'm just going to check the comments and just to see if there's anything right here. I think there's one. Big shout out. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for certainly, for all the giving and doing all that you do. Love you all. And all I can say is I'm looking forward to our next broadcast, which is going to be really fun, Kim. And I can't wait when we get to do that. But certainly for our panelists, for our special guest, Dr. Ballard, Lisa, thank you so much for Guy Danhoff. We want to thank you for watching this very special edition right here at Shape America.
Don't forget to check out those websites.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.